The series' second visit to Long Beach brought anxiety for many, but as the race played out, it appeared the practice and focus had paid off. A relatively clean race brought Tullio back to the top spot for the first time since the season opener. While he and Holland have hogged all the victories so far, don't forget about Herbino still waiting in the wings. Let's see if Daytona's high banks allow him to stay a little closer as we get ready to watch the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series Linda Yogi Memorial. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Daytona International Speedway's road course very nearly held an IndyCar race back in the early 2000s, but it never quite panned out. Even still, it isn't completely foreign to open wheels. Let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to the Daytona International Speedway. While many oval fans associate this Central Florida track with mainly NASCAR, the road course has gained just as much worldwide fame thanks to it hosting motorcycles and sports cars for decades. In fact, the flagship road race, the 24 Hours of Daytona, has become a major draw for drivers of all disciplines, many eager to have a go at endurance racing. The stats make this place sound relatively simple, with 12 corners on the regular road circuit and 14 on the NASCAR version, both spread amongst 3.5 miles. Indeed, a majority of the lap is spent on the oval portion, where you fly along the notoriously steep banking. But it's easy to underestimate the challenge presented to the drivers. The infield portion begins with the scary kinked entry of Turn 1. Not only is it the fastest part of the track, but the transition from the banking to the flat tends to upset the car as you slow it down. There's also the bus stop chicane on the backstretch. Added in the 80s, this is a tricky piece of circuit that punishes a poor exit severely, with it leading back into the latter half of the oval. As you'd expect, the long periods on throttle mean that drafting tends to play a factor in the racing. It also means passing isn't usually too great of an issue if you have the pace to catch someone. The more difficult thing is managing to gap your opponent so that they don't ride in your slipstream once you get by. With half a century of endurance racing collected among these walls, it's not unfair to say that road racers have just as much claim to call Daytona home. Fans who come to watch certainly won't be disappointed by the high speeds and fantastic thrills it invariably provides each year. Well, DJ, the Indy Pro cars get the best of both worlds that they were designed for, which is road and ovals, as we race a roval today.
We certainly do, Joe, and it's going to be a very interesting race here, to say the least. Now, your overtaking opportunities, they're going to be pretty much what you see anytime that the SimMSA boys come to town here, going down into that turn one, and then maybe a couple of good opportunities on the backstretch going into the bus stop. Remember, these cars are a little bit more narrow than the GTs or the prototypes, so there may be ability to get a little more too wide than we're used to seeing going into the bus stop. But what's going to be very, very crucial about these little Indy Pro 2000s on the high banks of Daytona is top speed and the rev limiter. Remember, sixth gear in these cars is not really all that changeable, and I think very, very easily, if you are tucked up behind another car, you're going to slam into that rev limiter. So really deciding where you want to make the pass, trying to manage that gap, is going to be very, very crucial. Now, danger zones to look out for over the course of the race, well, it's really both the international and the second horseshoe in that infield section. Very, very tricky. You've got to be patient and late on the power. The kink in the middle of the infield section, not going to be that difficult for these Indy pros to be able to take that flat out. But turn 6, with the change in track composition, different types of surface there, will be very, very hard to get the grip down.
Certainly will be a tough one. Now, before we get into some of our normal stuff here on the show, we do want to mention the life of Linda Yogi, who has sadly passed away. She was the wife of Greg Seitz, who is a very familiar face here in the Thursday night series for the Precision Racing League. You've heard a lot of the drivers mention his name, how their thoughts have been going out to him in the post-race. And, well, the sad news is that Linda has passed away this week. And so So really, we do send our thoughts and well wishes out to Greg right now, who's going through a very difficult time. She has lost her fight with cancer. And because of her involvement with the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, she did a lot of work with them. They have asked fellow people to donate to them, and we have a link in the description below if you would like to do that in her honor. So we want to thank everybody who has done that and all of the drivers who have been chipping in and doing what they can. You'll see this logo that we had on the screen there on many of the cars tonight, and I'm sure a lot of them are thinking of Greg in this very difficult time. Let's, though, first go through our sponsors, of course, for this series and give them a big thank you for making this happen, including SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL Indy Pro 2000 series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebutkicker.com. If we take a glance at the Drivers' Championship, the Pro Drivers' Championship has closed back down because of Tutulio taking that victory. And look at that, only 8 points between himself and Holland as we head into the latter half of the season. Now, I mentioned Christoph Herbeno, and that's why I say you really need to keep an eye on him. He's also only 15 points back, and while he hasn't taken a win yet this season, he's been consistently quick and has been following those two home a number of times. From there, it starts to get a little bit more separated. Mark McDonald and Connor Wagner rounding out your top five, about 2 points separating those two. What about the AM Championship, DJ?
Well, Joe, after that DNF from last week's race with Nick Horvath, he finds himself 25 points back of Dave Peterson right now, but he's locked in a very, very tight battle with Brett Barrett, who's only 2 points off of Horvath in second. Now, Galaz is the only one out of these top five to have finished every race. Peterson getting a DNF in round one, Barrett getting one in round two, and as I said, Horvath in round three, but he is very close as well, only 3 points off of Barrett, and Tyler Scarali behind him, only 1 point back. So a very, very tight battle for second, but Dave Peterson will be hoping to extend that advantage here today.
Also have a team's championship in this series, and Delta Sport U4K has been the one to beat. From there, it's basically a tussle for the best of the rest, as the Britannia iSports team is only 9 points away from NinjaTrader. So those two are close to trying see who decides second in the championship. Then you got to jump back to Uragon Racing as Andes joins us in the top five, only roughly 8 points behind Uragon. So that could easily switch around as well. What about the race details, DJ?
Well, Joe, we are in the sixth round here, as you mentioned, for the Linda Yogi Memorial Race out here at Daytona today. We're looking at a 26-lap race, or 45 minutes, whatever will come first. And as I mentioned, it is open setup. Now, they're not really able to play with the gears that much because of the makeup of these Indy Pro 2000s, but they will be able to adjust their car to try to trim them out as much as possible to carry as much speed as they can down these long straightaways. Now, this is something else that's very crucial here today. The penalty incident points. We often see guys getting a little bit wide coming out of the bus stop. Only 11 incidents gets you a drive-through. That could run afoul of a few guys here today. Obviously, disqualification at 20, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But that's what happens if you sit on the naughty step. If you are on the good step, you get bonus points, and that is for Paul, fastest lap, or 3 incidents or less.
Right now, David Holland has that provisional pole. It was Christoph Herbeno for a while, but a quarter of a second difference between Christoph and David. Must have been some slipstream. I'd have to go back and check to see if Holland had been able to use some of his teammates to make that happen for that 42-1. Here's Herbeno on screen right now, actually coming to the line. Let's see if he can close that down and all. He will get a tow, but no, that's not going to be quicker for him. In the meantime, Christopher Richards actually leads the AM class in 11th overall, so he's not doing too shabby.
No, he is not. Your points leader right now in that AM class, Dave Peterson, back in 17th, third there as we watch Frank Nguyen coming to the line, currently 22nd. He is not doing himself any favors with that lap, though, and here comes third place Connor Wagner. Let's see what he's got.
And it looks like that time was not quicker. I think that was actually an out lap for him as well, as Julio Palacio and the 194 crosses, but he stays in 8th place. Now we look at Lampy as the 95 comes down to the line. Has only had one time lap. He must be having some trouble with the bus stop chicane, and he's actually going to practice his pit in. Probably going to be important here today, as there's no caution flags here on the road side of things. They really do need to work on green flag pit stop entry.
Yeah, they certainly do, and, you know, thankfully these cars are going a little bit slower even than the Cup cars that we're used to seeing out here, so that turn down to pit lane, not nearly as difficult, not nearly as instantaneous, but they're still going to have to be on it. Here comes Brett Barrett, though, across the line. He's currently down in 30th. He is not able to improve. Looks like he's running out by himself right now, so that's probably not going to do Brett too many favors.
Neil Alexander in 33rd. Is in the midst of a few cars, and that's a 44-1. That's quicker for him, so that bumps him up to 31st. Herbeno is coming to the line as well right now. No, he's not. He's coming into pit lane to practice with only 2 minutes left. He'd have to really hustle back out, so that might be it for his qualifying session. Verity way far down in 27th. That was a 43-1. There we go, up to 11th with that run, so that looks a lot more representative of Steven.
Yeah, it's a lot more of what we're used to seeing from him. Frank Nguyen looks like this is a bit of a slow lap for him. I think he's just gathering things back under him. Here we see two of the SRT teammates. That's Palacio and Menino as they come to the line. Palacio staying high there. Don't think this is going to be fast for him. But as for Menino, that's a good lap for him.
43 flat. That'll get him up into 11th. Yeah, I wonder if Palacio is just giving him a little bit of a tow and getting out of the way. Maybe he'll get that returned now by his teammate since he's running behind him. They're also putting along Fournier. Dave Peterson, that time through, did not go any faster. And Matthew Gunderson is coming down to pit lane as well. What about Roos sitting in 26? Nope, that's not going to be quicker than his 43.7, off by a couple tenths for him. I can report that Herbeno has come back out on track, and Holland is out there too. So our two major players in this pole position are still circulating, looking to set a flyer. Hugo Galaz stays in 33rd. If you're wondering where DeTulio is, well, he's sat on pit lane. He hasn't been out for a number of laps now and is in 4th.
And so I don't think qualifying is going to be as important as we've seen of some of the other twisty tracks here. We see Takeshi Kita coming across the line. Let's see if that 43.9 sticks. It does. 31st again for Takeshi. Another bad qualifying for him. He'll have a lot of ground to make up. Here comes Sebastian Merrier across the line, unable to improve for the 25 machine.
Holland abandoned this last flyer that he could have had. He came into the pits. And what about Christoph? As we watch Collin, oh my goodness, this is going to be a big wreck. So that actually, well, thankfully does not get in the way of Christoph Herbeno, who you see able to get around it. So he'll get one last shot as we've got 16 seconds left. They'll be able to finish this flying lap. Those who have started it before the checkered flag, which comes very soon. And Dave Peterson and Sean Duhamel are going to be tight on whether or not they can start this one. It looks like they barely eked across, along with, actually, their other teammate, Donald Olson.
And that's good teammate tactics there from the three of them, just using each other to get a good draft. Vargas here looks like he's going to be abandoning the lap, so he'll be starting 45th as of right now. Connor Wagner had a little bit of a tow earlier in the lap from Galaz. He's now on his own. That may help him ever so slightly. Not going to be hitting the rev limiter as much, but let's see what the Delta Sport driver has.
Wagner sitting on the inside of that second row. Has to beat a 42.4, and a 42.6 won't do it. As behind him, Hugo Galaz also doesn't improve. Spicer up behind them, and the 45.3 is 2 seconds off of his quickest lap. This is Kita along with Ethan Oring. He got a big run there, and they're going to be side by side as they cross the line. But Oring's lap looks like it did not count. Kita's also didn't either.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a heartbreak there for them. Verity unable to improve as well, so he'll be starting back in 15th. Here is the AM driver of Daniel Barnett, though, currently sat back in 40th. Oh, unable to improve there for Daniel.
Rafael Ovando all the way down in 24th. He definitely needs a better run here, and he's not going to get it, unfortunately. I see Fournier heading in, Adam Wright also pitting. Dave Peterson and Sean Duhamel coming, and they were one of the last ones to be able to cross to start a new lap. Are they going to take it? It looks like they are. No, they are not. Peterson coming into the pits. That is it then of our qualifiers. So why don't we go through our starting order here in just a moment as we let the clock tick down. It is a very big field out there today. 45 cars took a lap time. We might actually have upwards of 47 on the circuit. Last time we saw this many out here was when we were at Hockenheim, DJ, and that did not turn out so well.
Not exactly, Joe, and I will say Daytona is a little bit wider than the Hockenheim ring, so hopefully a little less incidents, but dare I say it, we could be in store for the big one around these high bank turns early on if drivers aren't that careful.
Hopefully they do stay careful, especially into the bus stop. It won't necessarily be in the banking. That is the trouble zone that I want to keep my eye on in case somebody trips up. Well, looks like the session is ticked over, so let's head on down to our starting grid for round 6. Here is the Linda Yogi Memorial here for the Precision Racing League. David Holland starts it on the top spot. More bonus points for him. Christoph Herbino looks quick today, though. He'll start from second. Connor Wagner will be P3 with Alex Fournier in fourth. Second place in the points, Alessandro Di Tullio starting from fifth, but the slipstream is powerful, so maybe this was by design, knowing he didn't really need the fastest lap possible. Julio Palacio starts sixth with Ethan Lampe in seventh, and it's Byron Daly in P8, Owen McLaughlin in ninth, and Owen Watts rounds out our top 10.
In 11th is going to be David Fishman, followed by David Menino. Sebastian Merrier behind them in 13th, and Ethan Oring in 14th, and Stephen Verity to round out your top 15. Behind them, it'll be Daniel Cranfuss, followed by Christopher Richards with Donald Olson in 18th, Mark McDonald in 19th, and Sean Duhamel rounding out your top 20.
20th goes to Frank Nguyen with Caven Norris in 22nd. Then it's Dave Peterson on the inside of the next row. Joey Haynes starts 24th. He's got Rafael Ovando behind him, and Michael Broomhead will start on the right of Rafael. Tyler Gore starts 27th, and it's Matthew Gunderson in P28. Aaron Roofs will be 29th, along with Andy Spicer on that row.
In 31st is going to be Adam Wright, followed by Takeshi Kita with Brett Barrett and Neil Alexander in row 17. Row 18 will be Hugo Galaz, followed by Nick Horvath with Gonzalo Munoz in 37th and Tyler Scarali in 38th. And then your top 40 will be rounded out by Nicholas Collender and Daniel Barnett.
Brett Accord starts 41st with Guillaume Huard in 42nd. Then we've got David Hebert there, along with James Doherty. Last driver to put a time in was Lucio Vargas, well off the pace, but could have just been trying to get a banker in. Rod Clenard and Danny Duchesne look like they will grid up. Let me double check that. No, I do not see Rod Clenard out there. So 46 that we will see take part here today as the pace car is already off and rolling. And again, if anybody would like to donate to the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, we have a link in the YouTube description below. This is all, of course, in memory of Linda Yogi, and we once again want to send our thoughts out to Greg Seitz. Greg, if you're watching, we're thinking of you, bud, and we're hoping that this puts at least a little bit of a smile on your face. So we get ready for the green flag, and it is going to be our points leader at the top spot, David Holland. 3 victories in a row in round 2, 3, and 4, but the last one didn't pan out for him. What's going to happen in this round? It could be anybody's guess, as the Porsche pace car now ducks in. David Holland has control. He can go whenever he pleases. He's going to check him up, and now he takes off. Green flag is out. Holland is off. It's single file between himself and Herbino, but we have a lot of side-by-side behind him. In fact, 3 wide back there with Palacio for a bit as they now break into turn 1. This is often a point of contention into this corner, even though it's very wide. Are we going to see everybody through safely? So far, so good.
Everybody keeping everything nice in line here, but now they start to fly through the kink and into the first part of that International Horseshoe. Everybody's still looking nice and clean, and it is those Delta Sport guys doing what they have done this entire season leading into 1, 2, 3, but we've had a little bit of a stack up in the back.
Oh, and it looks like Andy Spicer might be a little involved in it. Neil Alexander, I see as well, had one car taking the motorcycle track through the International Horseshoe. I'm not sure what that was about as we watch the leaders head towards the oval for the first time. And it is going to be Holland leading Herbino, leading Wagner.
And behind them, it is Fournier, Palacio, Daly, and DeTulio. And interestingly, the other 2 Delta Sport drivers, Watson, Lampy, are behind DeTulio. So we may see a little bit of team tactics of them trying to stop a charge from Alessandro.
Looks like Neil Alexander had to take a tow after his damage. One car down low. Trying to figure out who that is exactly. I think that's DeTulio, actually. He's going to slot into 9th place. Not a good start for the number 20. He's got a lot of ground to make up here.
No, indeed. And as I was pointing out, that was actually Watts that got by him. So that was a defensive move there from Alessandro DeTulio trying to cover that off. But out front, these Delta Sport drivers keeping everything nice and easy. Herbino looking like he's got a pretty decent run here on Holland if he wants it. But I would not be surprised if he lifts a little bit here through the tri-oval, just tries to save a little bit of fuel.
They complete lap 1, and indeed, Herbino's not able to do anything. I believe Palacio may have got a slowdown penalty from the bus stop because he suddenly was handing away positions through the banking. And that looks like the most likely culprit to me. Down into the International Horseshoe for the 2nd time this race. And this is where, DJ, we could see drivers make the difference with that rev limiter halting everybody's progress on the banking.
Yeah, exactly. You've really got to throw it into these corners, I think, to do it. And it may be a little bit aided. You know, we've seen a couple of times here on the sim, some of the high-powered open wheelers like the Indy cars, the Dallara IR18s come out to this track, and it's very hard to get a pass done through there. But I think the little bit underpowered, a little bit less downforce Indy Pro 2000s, that may be the area to do it.
Very different lines back out of 6 from Holland and Herbino. But we get the same result as we ride on board with Connor Wagner looking up at our leading duo, coming onto the backstretch yet again. Seeing the sun coming in and out here today in this race, and that could affect those temperatures on the surface, which is right now very cool. Into the bus stop. Looks like Holland not going to be under threat, but he wants that good exit. And there's the temperatures you can see currently, 82 Fahrenheit, but with quite a bit of wind as well.
Yeah, and that will buffer the cars ever so slightly when they're on these high banks. They will get a little bit of that crosswind coming across them. They'll have to be a little bit careful to not move the car around too much.
Seen a bit of a breakaway now. Our top 3 pulling farther away from Fournier, about half a second. And then behind him, Owen Watts. Oh, as he's going to make a go at Byron Daly, and he's going to make a successful overtake. So Daly gets demoted into 6th. By the way, DeTulio up to 7th while we weren't watching.
Yeah, he's been able to hold on to it. Ooh, DeTulio looked a little aggressive there going into the International Horseshoe, doing exactly what you were talking about there, Joe, trying to take a look at Byron Daly ahead of him. Not able to get it done, but I have to say he has looked very vulnerable to Ethan Lampy behind him, almost like he's just not as fast on the straights, maybe running a little bit more downforce.
Down into the western horseshoe now to Tullio. He's actually being sized up himself a little bit. That's Ethan Lampe behind him in the 95. As they come out of turn 6, who's going to get the good shot onto the banking? Better exit could maybe get you a little bit of speed, but no, they are going to be dead even as they accelerate away.
Yeah, they are indeed. Lampe's there, but it looks like we've had a problem with Michael Broomhead, Joe.
Yeah, he's in pit lane with a lot of damage. Let me see if I can figure out what happened to him. Oh, he ran into an accident that was in front of him in turn 1. Now, this was going to be, I believe, between Aaron Roofs and looks like Christopher Richards. Now, poor Richards copped a penalty from being the cause of an accident at Long Beach. So Richards, unfortunately falling victim to it yet again. So this will happen into turn 1, and I think we're past it here on the replay. There it is right there. And then that is poor Mike Broomhead, just had no place to go.
Yeah, and that can certainly happen around here coming into that turn 1. It's an area where you are on the absolute limit of adhesion with those tires. You have absolutely nowhere you can turn the wheel to try to get anything out. So very, very tough day for both drivers. We check back in on the lead there. That's Wagner looking a little bit racy.
He thought about it, but couldn't do anything with it. And critically, the group behind, who started to drop back, has now caught back up. Fournier, Watts, Daly, Lampe, Tullio, they are all one big train instead of 2 groups now. In fact, this goes all the way back to McLaughlin in 11th. But we kind of expected this to happen at a track like this with underpowered open wheelers.
Yeah, it is not really surprising, and truthfully, because of the speeds these guys are achieving going on these high bankings, I expect that effective draft range to be about 1.5 seconds all the way up to almost 2 seconds, so there is plenty of room to draw back in.
So they'll snake their way through the bus stop. Let's see if everybody's tidy this time or if we get any slowdowns. Looks like everybody's good. And as they come off of there, David Holland leads the way, but we're only on lap 4, getting ready to start lap 5. Still a long ways to go. What's going on here? Wagner starting to go past. I suspect this might be team tactics. I don't know any reason he should have caught suddenly at the middle of the banking there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, Joe. These 3 drivers, they're being very smart about this. They want to all run out of fuel at exactly the right time. Woo, very wide there. That is in the back. That's the 316 of Fournier getting a little thrown off by some of the team tactics from Delta Sport. As they look like they were able to get back in there, but Fournier now going very, very close into the back. I think that's him with Daly.
Indeed, we got side-by-side action, and Lampe's going to come out at top. In 6th place. Still a few drivers scattering, trying to take advantage of the situation. They saw cars off pace and thought maybe they could snatch someone while those in front were distracted, but very little switching up amongst them. A big slide, though, coming on the banking from Alex Fournier, clearly pushing.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was saying, Joe, is now things start to stabilize for the moment, is what these 3 Delta Sport drivers up front, Wagner, Herbino, and Holland, what they want to do is they want to pit at the same time so they can continue to have a draft train when they get out of the pits. So the swapping positions like that is basically to ensure they're each saving the same amount of fuel.
They know how easy it is to catch up, so I suspect nobody here really is too fussed about being the leader for very long. And look at how close this is between Owen Watts and Ethan Lampe. Lampe, who is fighting with Daly, now sees potentially an opportunity. He probably is on the limiter. Yeah, you can see it flashing away, grinding up against it. He's going to look around the outside, try and go in a little bit deeper, but nothing doing.
No, just can't get that car wound down through there. As you saw on the steering wheel, it's really only a 2nd or 3rd degree corner, and the same is true for these horseshoes. So really not as heavy braking as these Indy Pro 2000s would really like to get a good effective pass done.
It's looking like it might be a little frustrating for many drivers here today because it does seem difficult to pass, which is not usually what we talk about when we get to a draft track for these cars, is often passing happens with quite some frequency. Everybody heading towards turn 6 now and back onto the banking once again. And once again, seems like different lines being taken amongst these teammates as they start to pick up speed. Let's head back to Verity, though, as he's got a nice little fight going on with Joey Haynes and Kevin Norris.
Indeed, he was side by side with Joey Haynes through most of the infield section, Joe. There you see Verity popping out to the top side, a little bit of that wiggle. Oh, we're thinking about going 3 wide in the back there with Kevin Norris.
Norris backed out of that one, and I'm glad that he did. I thought for sure we were going to see a big wreck as they were going at a high rate of knots. Now, this is interesting because Joey Haynes is second in the AM class currently. Ethan Oring is the leader. He's a little up the road, so he's got a ways to go to make that up and challenge for the lead. But we've already seen a few times in this series where AM leaders wreck out, and you didn't have to do anything to inherit that spot.
Exactly, and there you see Kevin Norris slamming into that rev limiter, not being able to get the pass done by Haynes. But I almost think for Joey Haynes, being behind Stephen Verity may help him here. But oh, here comes Norris trying that again. A little bit of a push to the inside, not able to get it done. Going down into turn 1, he's going to have to back off, but he's still very close behind, going through the little kink there. He's going to have a look to the inside of the horseshoe.
Well, as interested as he is in that 17th spot, he's been unable to execute and actually has a very bad exit coming off of the International Horseshoe. So Haynes pulls away from him by about half a second, can focus forward on getting this spot back from Verity. As they come through the Western Horseshoe, he keeps tucked right underneath that 04. Can he get something here to maybe get enough of a slipstream to be passed before they run into the rev limiter? Oh, he's going to be close, but will this be close enough?
It's going to be very tight, Joe. I think we've normally seen a lot closer be able to pull it off, but Joey certainly thinks he's got something pulling the same move that Verity pulled on him. He ducks out to the outside. They are side by side. Looks like he hits the rev limiter right there. Verity backs off a little bit and says, you know what? I will just follow you through here, my friend.
Didn't feel it was worth the risk. So Haynes back up into 16th. As we look at the leaders yet again, and Connor Wagner ahead of David Holland, ahead of Christophe Herbernot. Alex Fournier also behind them with Watts, Lampy, and Daly in tow. Don't think we've seen much drama up here lately. I think this is just a lot of drivers that are settling in for the long haul.
Yeah, Joe, very similar to what we see a lot of times in the front of the pack here. These guys are very experienced, and they're driving to a delta at this point. They know what they need to do. They know the times they need to do, and they're just trying to run a consistent race.
Oh, do we have a problem with Sebastian Merriere? This, he got hit by, our AM leader, Ethan Oring. And I think he must have hit his suspension because he tows very quickly. Let's stay on the replay, though, and switch over to Oring once we see this contact, because I want to see if Oring has any damage after that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that right tire very, very messed up there. Let's check out with that onboard from Oring at this point. We don't have it, I'm hearing, but, that looks, Joe, just like kind of a racing incident. Nowhere for anybody to go there. Nobody's fault at all.
I think we're back on the leaders here. As let's turn the cameras to the floor. And the reason I want to look at this is because if Oring does have damage, that could put him susceptible to Joey Haynes. And it looks clean from these angles. I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, I'm not either, although that is Verity making a pretty good move on him there. It looks like trying to get around him, so...
I think that's McDonald, actually.
It is McDonald, excuse me. That is McDonald. The Rust color, the Rust Racing cars running together for me. But good battle there. Yeah, he looks clean.
And what happened to... McLaughlin a bizarre incident between McLaughlin and Palacio that actually gets Palacio 4 wheels into the air. And McLaughlin, I think, had to actually tow his car. What was he doing? Was he trying to squeeze him or what?
I think somebody's been watching clips of Senna and Mansell at Barcelona and tried to take a leaf out of that unsuccessfully there, Joe. Looked like a little bit of just kind of an aggressive elbows out move, get out of my way, and nobody ended out the better for it.
And some big damage on McLaughlin's car, as that big hop has to have given something to Palacio, but he's still out running. He's in 11th place. We're looking at 17th with Matthew Gunderson. He's got Crane Foose behind him, Tyler Gore, Dave Peterson, and Takeshi Kita. Ooh, this is actually a very good run there from Crane Foose. The 55 is going to look a long way around. Is he going to be able to get fully past, though? He starts to stall out, and Gunderson likewise decides it's better to just slot in behind, and the 33 will accept 18th for the time being.
Heads up driving there from Gunderson. Better to do that. And remember, he does have his teammate now, Tyler Gore, behind him. So they'll probably be on comms together, just kind of checking things out and saying, okay, let's try to get this guy now. Oh, 3 wide here. This is the battle between Cave and Norris that we were watching earlier, along with Verity, who's in the middle in the yellow machine. He's able to come out the bravest on the brakes as Joey Haynes will fall to 16th. Great stuff from all 3 of them, managing to keep it clean down into turn 1. Not often that you see 3 wide here at Daytona into the first corner and everybody comes out safe. Indeed, Joe. Every series I've seen there, that normally ends in absolute tears. But everybody keeping it clean there. Stephen Verity knocking some cones out of the way just for effect there. Ooh, Joey Haynes looking a little bit racy. Got a good run there on Cave and Norris. Had to back out a little bit coming out of the Western Horseshoe, but I think he may be able to mount a good charge on that 774.
And Verity would love them to keep fighting that way. But we're going to have to get away from that because Lampy is in a fight with Watts, who is also side by side with Fournier, and it looks like Watts takes the advantage as Fournier falls back to 5th, and this gives a great exit to Byron Daly, who's going to look up to the high side. No.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit too early of a poke out there for him, especially considering the fact that just ahead of him, Ethan Lampy is behind the draft. Ooh, this is gonna be a little bit dicey here. That's the 316 of Fournier and Watts going side by side with Lampy trying to tuck in behind.
I think Watts is damaged. His top speed was nothing like the others, diving down to the inside. Oh, and spinning out in front of his teammate. Ethan Lampy and Alex Fournier find themselves off of turn 1. They're able to get it going, but multiple spots have been given away.
They have, my goodness gracious, and I have to say, good heads up for both drivers just stomping on the brakes there. Just from the cosmetic look that we can see, I think both were able to escape with no damage.
Well, that really split up the top group. The top 3, Holland, Wagner, and Herbino, now have a massive gap back to Watts and 4th, and DeTulio here having some fun. That's Lampy, who just returned to the track in front of him. Fishman is in there, and Fournier came in at the back of this train.
Yeah, so when one train breaks up, another one forms there, Joe. Now let's see the exits coming out of turn 6, that tricky double apex left-hander. Not seeing anybody getting super close. Good run-ish from Fishman here. He may be able to get something on DeTulio if he dives in super late, but I think he stalls out on the rev limiter.
Tulio stays safe for now. Getting close to that halfway mark in this event. Through the bus stop, DeTulio once again nice and solid. So Fishman probably not going to get the chance that he wants through NASCAR 3 and 4. Let's start to settle down once again now that we finally had a little bit of action up at the front. And unfortunately, that action came with some repercussions for a few drivers who don't quite have the track position they used to.
Yeah, most certainly. And what's really important out of that is that that leading three really alone. Ooh, but there's some good side-by-side going on in front. That is directly in front of Palacio. That is Menino and DeTulio. That's Palacio and... I know how to do words. Menino and Lampy fighting. And there's Lampy pulling out ahead.
Great pass there from Ethan. Attacking Menino cleanly and crisply. As now DeTulio has an opportunity. He's going to try and take it, sending it deep down into the western horseshoe. He's managed to get side by side, but he's going to be on the wrong side coming up to turn 6.
He is, looking at a little bit of a crossover there for DeTulio, but wasn't able to get anything tighter off of the corner, but I think that may slow him down very slightly on corner exit, and indeed, Fishman smells blood in the water now. He is hot on the heels, while Menino tries to close down on Lampy. We ride on board with Fishman in the back.
He doesn't look like he's gaining, unfortunately, and in front of them, side by side, Lampy has to give it right back to Menino. So Dave gets himself into 6. Who is going to be able to pay that back here out of the bus stop? Menino looks pretty good, but Lampy is tucked right underneath that rear wing. He's going to start gaining, but where does he hit that limiter?
That is indeed the big question. There comes the move from Lampy, trying to think about it. Little bit of a move there. He's in that wall of dirty air. DeTulio knows he's stalled out there at that point. You can see that car starting to fall back a little bit. Now it's just going to be a battle of the brakes going down into turn 1.
It looks like Menino might win that battle. So no change there. Is behind them, I believe Palacio got past O-Ring for 10th position. And that also involves Mark McDonald. And there they come into the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, he did indeed there, Joe. And that move from Palacio was really going down into the bus stop and was able to hold off a good assault from O-Ring coming back onto the main straightaway.
So we watch from Palacio looking at Ethan O-Ring, still our AM class leader, but it is Caven Norris who is now second in that class, ahead of Joey Haynes. Once again, the sun popping out here. Hasn't gone up too much on that track temperature, just about 5 degrees, up to 87 Fahrenheit now, and the wind is still mighty fast.
Yeah, it is, and that's where you're seeing, that's a drift up there. A little bit strange. Is that a lift maybe from Palacio? Looks like he just got offline.
So. It looked kind of intentional to me. I think maybe he just decided to let him through. Give the spot to O-Ring, who is now running in 10th. Oh, and I think we had another swap with our Delta Sport guys. Herbino just went by Holland, who's now in 2nd. Wagner stays in 3rd. This all looks very, very coordinated.
It does indeed, and you notice that right as we cross over the halfway point. So these guys very clearly in communication, trying to just hit those fuel numbers.
Past halfway. So who starts to come in and try to take some service? Looks like a few drivers actually coming out of the pits. And we do have pitters, actually. Dave Peterson is in. Tyler Gore, Gunderson, Takeshi Kita, Adam Wright. I see Tyler Scarali also in. Already, it's quick stops in these cars, so they're working their way towards the pit exit.
And indeed, you notice there, most of these leaders up front there, Peterson, Gore, and Kita, all not taking tires. I think out of that, Gunderson was the only one who did take tires. So we'll have to see if that plays into any late race speed for these drivers.
You can see they now have the newer pit exit pit speed limiter. You have to go all the way to those green cones before you can take that off, or else you will be pinged for speeding on pit lane. The Palacio fight, he gave up another one. He let McDonald through as well. I wonder if he's thinking, I can't seem to get away from these guys, maybe just ride behind?
that may be the strategy. See if he can stretch out that fuel to one more lap potentially. Joe, I'm a little bit of a loss for that. The double let-by like that just seems a bit confusing to me.
Okay, here's another weird one. One of our Delta Sport drivers pitted alone, Connor Wagner. Looks like Lampy, Minino, Tutulio, they are all in. I see Fishman pitting. Caven Norris as well, Stephen Verity. It's all starting to kick off.
And I can report that Wagner did not take tires in that stop as we watch him there. Very strange for him to come in solo like that. I mean, he's going to have Lampy a little bit behind him, but it's still a big gap back. I just don't understand that strategy.
Yeah, I'm a little confused as well. We're still waiting on Herbino, Holland, Daly, Watts, McDonald, Orion, Palacio, and Haynes to pit. But many of the other drivers behind have already come in. It looks like it's a relatively small pit window if this is most of these guys coming in because they're towards the end of their fuel. I mean, typically we see many, probably about 3/4 of the way through the race before the pit window closes, and we've only just gotten past halfway.
It's very true, Joe. It is a little bit suspect. It may be just a little bit of guys, first couple of guys came in, everybody wants to go down in and cover it off. But they are on the loud pedal for a majority of this lap. It is a very thirsty circuit, so that may play into it slightly, but I would have expected a little bit longer out of these guys, if I'm honest.
Same here. And looks like Herbino and Holland, they are coming in. So maybe this really is the limit for them. We're going to get everybody else. Owen Watts is in. Daly. McDonald will be next. And yes, McDonald is pitting. Orion is pitting. Palacio and Haynes. This is the end of the pit window. It is just an extremely thirsty circuit. Our highest pitter right now is Connor Wagner. He's coming around, but Holland is moving. Wagner's coming down towards turn one. This is actually going to be quite close.
Joe, massive stop, massively long stop for Herbino, but we watch this battle coming out of the pits. This is going to be very close.
And Wagner's got it. Wagner has jumped them. Was he faster this whole time and just decided he didn't want to mess around once he had the chance to get into the pit stops? He has broken the slipstream. It is 2.3 seconds to David Holland. We could see finally a third different winner if Connor Wagner can get this to the end.
We very well could, and despite the fact, big wiggle there for the driver, but despite Wagner coming out in the lead, it was a disastrous sequence of pit stops for the rest of that Delta Sport team. Herbino was stationary in the box for 12 seconds, and then his teammate Ethan Lampy had a problem coming out of pit lane, nearly spun it. So big problems all around.
Wow. Lampy's still in third, though. Herbino running fourth, and Tutulio is P5, but they're all spread apart. Lampy and Herbino are fighting for position. I think we had an issue with Adam Wright. I just saw him take a tow, but I'm not sure what occurred there. So Wagner, now that pit stops are done, is our new leader. This is the fight between Herbino and Lampy.
And there you see Herbino just trying to poke his nose a little bit higher up on the track, maybe carry a little bit more momentum before tucking back and going downhill through that NASCAR 4. And now he's going to poke to the inside. Did he just come into the pits?
There's a few drivers, I think, with black flags. Tutulio's one of them. I'm seeing mention, and I wonder if Lampy got one as well. What happened here?
He must have, Joe, Wright, Daly, Lampy, and Tutulio all serving pit penalties potentially here.
I'm a bit confused. Maybe, I wonder, you know what? I bet they took their pit limiter off before they got to the green cone.
That's got to be it, Joe. This is not an incident limit from these drivers. That would be a drive-through. These drivers are all stationary in their box.
Oh, no. Well, that definitely puts paid to many of the hopes, at least for the time being, of Tuttulio on this championship. He will get a drop week, obviously, but he's already used one of them up with an 18-point round in round 4. So for Tuttulio, he is now behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, indeed. But let's check in on Ethan Oring here, who's got a little bit of a battle for him with Alex Fournier behind in P8.
And Caven Norris. This is for the lead in the AM class, and Norris now has it. So Caven Norris has used the pit stops to leapfrog his way forward, and he could potentially take this AM win.
Yeah, Caven has been driving a very, very aggressive race here. Love to see it. Ooh, but here it comes to the outside. This battle is anywhere but over.
Oh, did he get a slowdown penalty? That looked to me like he maybe cut the course there through the bus stop. I'm going back to check to see, and it did look a little suspect at one apex, but I'm not sure. Regardless, that allows Ethan Oring the comfy gap that he enjoyed for much of the race so far.
Indeed, and it looks like Norris is just slow all around, Joe. He may have picked up damage. He's getting swallowed right now by Kranfuss, Hines, Verity. They're all coming up on him.
He's stuck in second gear. Or is he? Or nope, no, okay, he's not. So he's back running. He's going to be side by side. And that is Kranfuss, who's going to be able to get through. Yeah, this is very, very strange. Wonder if he clipped a curb wrong and maybe damaged the under tray.
I'm not sure, but Joe, I mean, he just looked like he was absolutely stationary coming out of turn 1. Lot of opposite lock he had to put in the car coming through turn 6 as well. All these drivers up on the high side here. That's very funny. It's Daniel Barnett right ahead of them, trying to be a nice guy and stick out of the way for him. And Kranfuss says, "No, I want your draft, sir," and ducked back on him.
Now he's going to be able to hold low and let them through. There you go. Early braking. And both Norris and Kranfuss are passed. Yeah, that gap between Oring and Norris is more than 5 seconds right now. So Ethan is clear. All he has to do is focus on his own race. And if he wants to try and take another position, he can try for it. This is for 4th, just outside the podium, Menino and the orange and white machine, Watts in the black and red.
Indeed, Menino holding them off right now as they make their way through that sweeper section that really compromises the multiples of turn 2. Menino looking like he's got the upper hand here, but Owen Watts certainly knows where the advantage will switch back to him.
There's a lot of points up for grabs this high up the field, so pretty sure that's going to be exciting. Much like it's exciting here still between Kranfuss and Norris for 11th position. They've been back and forth on it. Norris looks like he's got it going again. So whatever that mysterious slowing down was about, it certainly hurt him enough that now he might not be able to take that AM win unless his rival has something happen to him in these last 8 laps.
Indeed, but he's at least going to be in a good position here to maybe bump himself up to 11th. That's really interesting. Kranfuss taking that high line regularly. He's really the only driver that I have seen just let the momentum carry him up the track and then dive it back down coming out of the infield. But here comes Norris to the outside. It's a battle of the brakes once again. Is Kranfuss going to back off? Yes, he is. He's going to give the line over to Norris, but he's going to have a good run coming out of the bus stop.
I'm starting to wonder with how much drivers are willing to swap back around. If a few are a little tight on fuel, well, here we go again. Has a great run and is going to go around the 7-7 for Kranfuss. Is on the outside, though. Trying to make this pass stick into turn 1 is not going to be easy as they fly towards that braking zone. He tries his darndest. Oh, very shallow there with Norris to the inside. They keep out of each other, wheel to wheel through the chicane and down into the International Horseshoe. Norris eventually has to give up the ghost.
He does, but he's not done yet. The little crossover move there. Kranfus is wise to it. Cuts him off before they get to the kink coming into the infield section. But here comes Norris again, hot on his heels. Thinks about jinking to the outside. Kranfus covers him off. Very, very good heads-up defensive driving from the driver of the 55.
Laps are now really ticking down. And the drivers are going to run out of opportunities eventually. Oh, something did happen to Ethan Oring. That was Ethan Oring at the bottom of the track in the 4. Our AM lead does indeed go back to Kevin Norris.
It looks like Oring is back up to speed now, but let's check this replay out, Joe. This is him following behind Palacio, coming through turn 6. Car gets a little bit squiggly there, catches it, and there it goes. He just spun it.
Oh. Just that one little mistake. He's able to return to the track and get it going as quickly as possible. But he's now 3rd in that AM class, as even Joey Haynes was able to slip by before he could do anything about it.
We've got another good battle here. This is Dave Menino and Owen Watts as they fight their way around the track. That is Donald Olson, a lap car ahead of them. Tried to get a good run going through the front stretch, did Owen Watts, but Menino very heads up defensive to the inside.
I think we're far enough into the race that I feel safe saying this at this stage, but the attrition does look much better this time compared to what we saw at Hockenheim with the high field count. 46 starters, we still have 39 of them running with only 6 laps to go.
Indeed, and these laps have ticked by very, very quickly, Joe, kind of startlingly how they have. So here as we continue to ride on board with Owen Watts just trailing behind Menino ahead of him. And you can see there Menino's line as compared to that one we were watching from Kranfus, Menino keeping it lower down to that yellow line throughout the corner.
Let's glance at 10th place with Norris and Kranfus still close together. But as we watch this, I want to mention that David Holland seems to have reeled in Connor Wagner a bit. So I think he might be a little bit faster. Now he lost, I think he lost some in traffic because he was having to lap David Hebert through the bus stop. And that's exactly where these 4 are right now. The 04 of Verity, can't miss it in that bright yellow. Chasing behind his teammate Kranfus. Are they going to be able to pop out? Kevin Norris not looking too quick yet again. Verity has the speed, and his teammate's going to try and follow him through.
Looks like a little bit of hit of that rev limiter for Verity as they dive down into 1. We've seen Norris be very, very good on the inside. Whoa, almost clips the grass there. Carrying the momentum around the outside, though, is Verity. They're still going to be side by side through turn 2 as that track switches up, and it's position Verity.
Oh, he almost gets run into, though. He left just enough space for Kevin Norris on that outside, who braked as deep as he could. Couldn't get the over-under, though. And now he has to hold behind him, unfortunately. Whoa! But that was Kevin Norris, or excuse me, Daniel Kranfus just sailing past Kevin Norris. So put Daniel Kranfus now into 11th. Ambitious moves here late in the race. Oh, wow. That gap between Holland and Wagner really is coming down. It's 1.4. I feel pretty confident that Holland is quicker than Connor, and now he will have the slipstream.
Yeah, he will. He was able to also pick up a little bit of slipstream from some slower cars around him. That gap just coming down by leaps and bounds here in the later stages of the race. There you can see, I think that's Wagner. Yeah, that is indeed Wagner poking his nose out from behind of that lap car. He's going to make it around, and you can see they're closing up a lot during braking.
This is horrible news for David. Holland, Holland just got hit. Contact with Andy Spicer, and I think he's going to be able to get away with it. The car looks okay. So as much as he was gaining on Connor Wagner, he's finding roadblocks in the way. Oh, It looks to me like Andy was trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, he was just a little bit pinned in there. I believe that was Galaz with him as well. Very, very difficult position. No fault for Andy, but that gap still only about 1.6 seconds. That's with ineffective draft range, so let's see what Dave Holland has here.
1.6 as they enter NASCAR 1. 1.5 already, and they're not even through the corner. As they come onto the super stretch. Oh, it went back up to 1.6. Now that is interesting. And it doesn't seem to be coming down. So is it potentially not the run through the banking that is allowing them to close in? Maybe it's the infield portion where we're seeing that 18 chip away.
It may be, and they're going to have the fight to themselves here for the next little bit. The next car up the road is Brett Accord, about 11 and a half seconds ahead of Connor Wagner. So they're not going to have any lap traffic separating them here at this point.
Interestingly, it went up to 1.7. So Holland, if anything, maybe looks mildly slower around the oval part. Down through turn 1, let's see. Does he chop it down? Just a little bit, not by a lot, just hundredths closer. Now into the International Horseshoe. Now it's coming down, 1.6. Coming off the corner, watching that timing carefully, 1.5. Yeah, this is where David Holland is a little quicker.
All right, so that may be that Holland is just running a tick more downforce, a little bit of opposite lock there coming through the Western Horseshoe. Gap holding steady at about 1.5 seconds. Let's see what it gets to when they exit through turn 6. If he can keep this nice and steady, another bit of opposite lock there for the 18, holding at about 1.5 down to 1.499.
Okay, so that was just a tenth closer than he was last time. But again, it looks like it's holding station as those numbers just aren't changing. Wagner with the advantage, 1.5 as they enter the bus stop. 1.4 through the middle of it. Coming off and back into NASCAR 3, it stays at 1.4. That helped Holland.
It did, but he's only got 2 more laps to try to get this done at the line, Joe. Time is running out for the number 18 if he wants to get a move on.
Is there any more traffic in front of Wagner? That certainly made a difference in this before. And they're a long ways away from Brett Accord, who's the next one up the road. So it could be that they catch Brett, especially if he has some problems and some mistakes in there, but I wouldn't count on it. Still at 1.5 for Holland, lost a tenth on that run past the tri-oval. Can he get it any closer this time?
Let's see, that looks like a pretty good exit there from Wagner. Holland just trying to answer. Gap now down to 1.36, so he is closing it in, but now they come to that ever-important tri-oval section here after the Western Horseshoe. Let's see if he can get that gap down a little bit more.
Off of the Western Horseshoe, looks to me like it's staying at 1.3. Taking every inch of the track off of turn 6. And once again, into the oval. Still hovering at a tantalizingly close 1.3 seconds. David has to be asking himself, how did he jump me so well?
I mean, it really was impressive. The gap in the pit stops was only about a second. Connor was stationary for 5.3, whereas Dave was stationary for 6.3. But looking at it, Joe, I think there was a little bit of a block up in the pits itself. It looks like there's about a 2.5 second gap as cone to cone between Wagner and Holland. So I think Holland was just able to widen things up a little bit better.
White flag being prepared for Connor Wagner as he once again goes by the flag stand. 1 to go. Holland at 1.4 seconds behind. Christoph Herbino is still looking at a podium, but he is 6 seconds back from them as well. So it's essentially down to these two up at the front if Holland can somehow close that little bit he needs to attack Wagner.
Check back on that mega battle we were watching. That's Verity going by the slower car of Olsen. Kranefoos into the inside of him. Is he going to have a look coming into one? No. And that is your AM leader, Kevin Norris, but he's got Joey Haynes behind him. So that's the battle for P1 in the AM category.
I did not think we would get those battles erupting as much as we have so far in this race. We'll try to keep an eye on it. In fact, it's the more interesting one right now because Holland has not been able to close in. So let's stick with this, see if this changes around.
Ooh, Norris had a bad run out of International Horseshoe, and that opened the door a little bit for Joey Haynes, but he was a little over-optimistic going into the Western Horseshoe. That cost him a couple tenths of a second, but here it all comes down to the draft.
Wagner has no more effective corners to go. He's on the banking. Oh, but it's come down to 1.1. It's still not completely dire as long as he's not out of fuel here, and it looks good. He is full tilt all the way to the line. The 51 of Connor Wagner is going to win here today at Daytona. Holland takes second. Herbino gets third. Where is our AM fight? Norris ahead of Haynes, and Haynes has suddenly dropped back to 1 second behind him.
He got caught out coming into the bus stop with a little bit of lap traffic there, Joe. David Hebert, no fault of his own, just wrong place, wrong time, and that has effectively given over that AM lead to Kevin Norris.
Kranefoos actually making a great pass at the end. Oh, but he's going to hand it back to Verity as Kevin Norris takes the AM class win in Daytona. That's from 22nd on the grid, by the way. We see a battle between Lampe and Tullio. Oh, what a horrible day for Alessandro. This will be 20th if he can finish ahead of Lampe, and it's going to be tight. Oh, in the end, it was Tullio. Whew, by a few thousandths of a second. Lampe takes 21st, and then the last few on the lead lap are coming to the line here. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. We just watched the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series Linda Yogi Memorial. And here it was Connor Wagner who became our third different winner of the season, beating out David Holland through the pit stops and narrowly holding him behind by 1.2 seconds at the end. Christoph Herbino took another podium, finishing third with Dave Menino in P4 and Owen Watts finishing fifth. And it's Dave Fishman in the sixth position. Mark McDonald did not get a great qualifying, 19th, but he made up for it in the race with a seventh. Fournier was P8 and Palacio was ninth, with Verity finishing 10th.
In 11th place was Daniel Kranfuss, and Kevin Norris, after that fantastic battle we were watching for almost the entire race, was able to take that AM class win, followed by Joey Haynes and Ethan Oring, rounding out your AM podium. Takeshi Kita was 15th, followed by Rafael Ovando and Matthew Gunderson in 17th. Brett Barrett was 18th, followed by Sean Duhamel and Alessandro DiTullio.
Ethan Lampy probably not happy with that one, taking 21st with Frank Nguyen in 22nd. Then it's Nick Horvath in the 23rd spot, coming up from 36. Great climb. Tyler Gore was P24 as Scarali was 25th and Vargas was 26th. And you got Danny Duchesne in there in 27th. Gonzalo Munoz in 28th. And last one on the lead lap was Brett Accord in at 29th with Andrew Spicer in 30th.
And 31st, also lap down, was David A. Bear, followed by Donald Olson and Daniel Barrett in 33rd. 34th was Nicholas Colander, followed by Dave Peterson. And then Adam Wright was your first driver 2 laps down, with Neil Alexander, Owen McLaughlin, Hugo Laws, and Byron Daly all suffering damage and withdrawing from the race.
Yep, it's all DNFs from here. So as we scroll those across the screen, let's take a chat with our winner here today, Connor Wagner. Congratulations. You're the first driver that is not named David Holland or Alessandro DiTullio to win this season. But first of all, we have to ask, how did you manage to get ahead of David in those pit stops? That was incredible.
Yeah, so I went for, I guess, what you could call an undercut. But really what happened is David took tires and I didn't, and so did Christoph. So the 2.5 second, 3 second gap that I had when I came out of the pits when they came out of the pits was because they took a new set of tires. And so just from there, it was trying to be consistent, not make mistakes. But as you guys saw, David was slowly catching me as my tires started falling off more and more. But yeah, it was a really fun race.
Yeah, we found it very interesting. We were paying attention to that gap, and it looked like you actually somehow would usually manage to pull away a little bit on the oval portion. We were kind of surprised by that. What about you? Did you have a lot of wing trimmed out or something that would allow you to do that?
I think this week was tricky. So the oval itself, these cars ride so low when they're compressed around the banking on the oval here, they actually start to bottom out a little bit. So maybe my setup was slightly higher than David's. I think we were on pretty much the same setup, though, just slight differences. So we should have been pretty comparable because I know we were running the same wings. But I don't know if it looked that way on the broadcast or not.
Well, regardless, this has been excellent in your championship hopes, kicking off the second half of the season with a victory. Do you head off to Laguna Seca thinking that you could do something similar? You were definitely in the hunt for the win for much of this race.
Yeah, I think, I'm still continuing to progress as a driver and figuring out what I like in this car from the setup. So hopefully as we continue to develop the setup and I keep working on my driving, I could be more consistent at the front. That's the end goal, but this week it really came together with good strategy and some decent driving. But yeah, I had a really good time.
Again, congratulations. Who helped make this one happen?
So I got to thank first my wife for letting me come and do this race and that type of stuff, letting me take time away from her. And then just Brian at Delta Sports, so he does a lot of work behind the scenes. And then Delta Sports sponsors, so Move Up Transportation Solutions, Free M USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, Get Stuck, and Driven for Texas.
That was Connor Wagner, our victor here in Florida. As up next, DJ's caught up with David Holland, who is just shy.
Well, David, we just heard Connor walk through his strategy on the pit stops, and you certainly at the end of the race had the speed for him. It looked like gotta be a little frustrating seeing those gaps come down and maybe just wishing there was one more lap.
Yeah, hey DJ. Yeah, first I just want to say that our thoughts are definitely with Greg and his family tonight. Proud to be able to, honor her with this race, and proud of the league for putting this on. But yeah, definitely a little bit frustrating. I think we might have had a bit of a different tire strategy. I kick myself every time I don't take tires. And I'm like, I definitely should have taken tires. No matter how much sense it makes, and definitely here at Daytona, it kind of makes sense to not take tires, but I did. And I was pushing, giving everything I had. I did just need a few more laps, though, to be able to close the gap.
Well, it looked like, you guys were running a pretty good team game there early on. Obviously, a bunch of the Delta Sport guys running up front. Were you concerned when it looked like penalties came around for guys like Herbino and things like that? Or was it just kind of like, okay, I'm just in a better position now, let's just keep going?
Yeah, the only thing that was really on my mind through the race was trying to squeeze that extra lap in on fuel. And we were kind of, hopping around up front, giving each other a chance to save. And I barely had enough. Actually, coming to my pit stall, I was sputtering pretty bad. So I kind of had to coast in there. It's pretty hairy getting down to pit lane and getting the speed down. I guess that's where Christoph picked up the penalty. I actually haven't had a chance to debrief with him yet. But yeah, luckily I didn't pick up the penalty, but I did cut it really close on fuel.
Well, next week we head to a track that hopefully fuel's not going to be as big of a concern, but certainly making sure you keep all four tires in the black stuff is, and that's Laguna Seca. How do you imagine that going? Obviously, I think a little bit more difficult to pass around there.
Yeah, Laguna Seca is always a very difficult track to pass on. It's a real high commitment track. It's a driver's track. It's fun to hot lap there. Sometimes not the most fun to race, but yeah, definitely a driver's track, and you have to be confident in the car. It'll be fun though.
Well, we're excited to see it, David. Who can you thank for this second place here tonight?
First of all, I just want to say, great job to Connor. He ran a fantastic race, and the strategy paid off for him. So awesome job for him. Awesome job to Christoph as well, and I think Owen was in the top 5 too. Then I got to thank my whole family. I'm actually not in my rig tonight. I'm visiting my parents. Luckily, my dad has a little rig in here, so I was able to get used to it real quick and come run the race. But yeah, besides that, just got to thank the team, Delta Sport, and all the team sponsors. Move Up, Free M USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, Get Stuck, Driven Texas, and Extreme Sim Racing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David. That was your second place finisher, David Holland. And now Joe Peak has caught up with your seventh place finisher, Mark McDonald.
Yeah, Mark was one we didn't get to follow a whole lot because there was action all over. But one thing that I'm curious about, Mark, is at a track where we saw many drivers running into the speed limiter, the rev limiter, and making it kind of tough to pass. How did you manage to go from 19th to 7th?
Hey guys, first and foremost, I want to say all our thoughts and prayers are with Greg Seitz and his family. He unfortunately lost his lovely wife, Linda, of 37 years earlier this week. So all of our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. And I want to say a thank you to the community that's reached out. There were several teams that were running special liveries in memory of her, and really appreciate the support from the entire community. From a racing standpoint, we went from a tight, twisty road street circuit to a pretty crazy high-speed oval. Thankfully, all in warm climate, and it was super hot out there. I just sort of held on and saved fuel as much as I could. I've spent a lot of time, running these with my brother in previous sims and previous days when we were kids, and then obviously the team itself, practicing drafting and making sure that we're working together. And luckily, as I came up through the field, I was able to collaborate with a couple of different guys. And I want to give a special shout out to Ethan Oring. I don't know if he won in AM or not, but he was giving me bump drafts down the back straight, which is a proper go-kart move that I assume he learned from his go-kart team, the Giacomellis over there in Pennsylvania, who 20 years ago I used to play around with as a kid. So it's really nice to have that full circle and meet up in the sim.
That is an awesome story on that. That's interesting that he was successful even to try to bump draft, because that can often go wrong in these cars. You talked about the switching around between the types of tracks, and we're honestly going right back to something that's tight, technical, and twisty with Laguna Seca. And you've been getting some decent results here and there. In fact, you were on our top 5 in the points at the start of the race. So knowing that, kind of what's your goal when we head off to round 7?
Yeah, I mean, my goal is consistent top 10s. Qualifying's been really tough for me. For whatever reason, I just haven't gotten a good run, and in this, it was important to get a good run. Literally, it was the last lap again, which was the same as at Long Beach, and I just, in the race, I'm focused on not having any issues, not having any problems, and just trying to make sure that we're we're keeping clean and getting up through the field. So Laguna Seca should be really awesome. I've had the good fortune to be there in real life, and I much prefer visiting in the sim when I don't have to walk up that giant hill 3 or 4 times. So this will be a really fun weekend, I think, and we'll get some great participation in the official races too, I hope.
That one is on my bucket list to go visit at some point, so I'm quite jealous. But congratulations on a top 10. Congratulations on a top 10. Is there anybody you'd like to thank that helped make that top 10 possible?
I'd like to thank the entire team, Mitchell Ian Green in particular. It's his setup that he's been tuning, so really appreciate his hard work on it. My teammates that were in the race, Nick and Dan and Steve. And then again, everyone in the community that's been so supportive for Greg and his family in these tough times. So really appreciate it, and really appreciate everything that you guys are doing for the broadcast and PRL. And we'll see you in 1 week time.
Absolutely. That was Mark McDonald, 7th here today. And as we wrap up, again, we want to give a big thank you to the PRL guys as well for putting together this event and gathering donations, which if you want to do, check out the link in the description below, as we have a way that you can donate to the Japanese American Museum of Oregon. A thank you goes to our sponsors, Simulation Motorsports Affinity. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net. And NinjaTrader. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. And finally, Butt Kicker. Feel what you've been missing at thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or check out our social media outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. Another one we keep a link in the description below for. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC, because the next race a week from now at Laguna Seca will be one to watch. That'll be Thursday, May 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.